Okay, here we are. Thank you all for, first of all, coming to this performance, those of you who are here in attendance live. I'm very excited to present this information. I'm also a little bit nervous. I've never shared a lot of this information ever before. I've never shared it publicly before, and I certainly haven't shared it online like this before. And so I'm very grateful and humbled and feeling very vulnerable too at the same time. If you've been searching for answers in your life, if you've been searching for a deeper understanding of who you are, why you're here on this planet, and what you're meant to achieve, then I really believe that this presentation may help you find some of those answers. I know most of you who are watching this webinar, in the beginning at least, you've worked with me in some way or another. Maybe we've coached together, maybe we've done shamanic work together, maybe we've done something else together. For those of you who are new, let me introduce myself. My name is Goodall, and by the way, I'm looking down because I have some notes here. Notes are going to keep me going. I've got like 4 pages of notes today. It's a lot of content, a lot of stories. So if I look down, that's why I'm looking down. My name is Goodall, and I'm an initiated shaman, an initiated high magician, a former professional mixed martial arts fighter, former professional nutrition coach, entrepreneur, and really a lifetime student of personal growth and development. I've had the good fortune of stumbling into martial arts and music at a young age, and that really transformed my life. And now I'm having this conversation with you based on everything I've learned from that time up until now in terms of not only human performance and human excellence, but also our place in the planet, our place in the universe, and what that means for each of us individually. And so before I get into the material, I just want to first of all say, if you're really serious about learning this stuff, I would suggest getting a notepad, a pen, a piece of paper, something to write on. You're probably going to want to watch this video a couple of times if you're a serious student. The information I'm going to be sharing in here, I'm going to be kind of dumping it on you. So we're not going to have a lot of time to go into the deeper details of what these concepts mean or how they might apply to your life specifically. I'm going to share general ideas and overarching concepts, but that's just going to give you enough information to kind of go from there and figure out how this applies in your life personally. So I would get a pen and a piece of paper, take some notes, and follow along. I'm slowing myself down because I have a tendency to speed up and talk fast and move fast when I'm nervous, when I'm vulnerable. So I'm slowing myself down now because I'm conscious of that. You shouldn't blindly believe anything I share in this video. You shouldn't blindly trust anything I'm going to share with you. You shouldn't just take my word for it. In fact, I don't share this information to convince anyone of anything, but rather to inspire you to find a truth that works for you. If you follow the breadcrumbs that I've followed, you'll find a similar truth or maybe an even deeper truth that's more applicable to your life. If you follow your own breadcrumbs, the same thing will happen. You'll find a truth that works for you and that gives you the freedom and the happiness that you deserve as a human being. So I encourage you, don't take anything I'm saying as fact. This is just my perspective. I'm a human being with psychology just like anyone else. I have beliefs, I have biases, I have preconceived ideas about things. Don't trust my word for it. Take the information I'm going to share with you and do your own thing with it. I believe that human beings are not only far more capable than we realize of achieving miraculous feats, but I also believe we're much older than we realize. In fact, I believe that our civilization is far, far older than our current history books lead us to believe. I believe that we are capable of miraculous achievements and that we've done these many times and that we had miraculous achievements happen all over the world all the time, present day and in ancient times. I believe that our civilization was once at a point of peace and prosperity, true peace and prosperity. I believe that that's when we created these massive monuments all over the planet, which I'll be sharing about in a little while too. I believe that we are all angelic, God-like beings operating this physical body or this character that we call ourselves for the purpose of growth and evolution. And I believe that we can grow to our highest potential through our deep healing, through our better understanding of who we are, what we've experienced in the past, and what we're moving toward in our future. When we can align with our purpose and align with our mission, then we can access our true inherent abilities and powers. I believe that if 1 million people understood what I understand and what I've been able to achieve in my life as a result of understanding it, we would transform our entire planet. I say that with humility, but I really, truly mean it. The information that I've discovered has helped countless people in my life, countless clients, countless friends and family members. It's transformed people's lives. It's transformed my life in incredible ways. And I believe that if 1 million people understood this stuff, we would change our entire planet in a very short period of time. I believe that heaven is a state of consciousness that we can access here and now, right here in this time. Not something that we go to after death. I'm not saying we don't go to a heavenly state after death. I don't know. I haven't died that I remember anytime soon. So maybe we do go to some sort of heavenly state after we die, but I believe that heaven is also a place that we can access now, in this time, during our life. And I believe that together we can create a world where heaven on earth for the individual is actually normal and possible for all of us. Some of the influences that I'm going to be sharing about over the next little bit, or sharing with you in the next little bit, are Brian Forster, an incredible author. He's written 22 books on the subject of ancient human history. I've read some Graham Hancock books like Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods. Eliphas Levi is an ancient magic writer from the, not ancient, sorry, he writes about ancient magic, but he's from the 1800s. He's written incredible books, including High Magic. Israel Regardie, a Garden of Pomegranates, and his book, The Golden Dawn, were huge influences for this material. You don't have to remember any of this. I'm just saying this stuff quickly. I'm going to send out a book list at the end of this, so you don't have to remember any of these things. I'm just sharing the resources with you. Tom Harper, The Book of Pagan Christ. Nicholas Notovich, The Book of The Unknown Life of Christ. The Gnostic Bible, the Qabalah, the Hermetica, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Various types of Andean shamanism that I've studied multiple times in Peru, and reading books and doing my own work. I've found resources and references and influences from Taoism and Hinduism and yoga and Buddhist meditation and Qabalah and alchemy and personal development and paganism and Wicca, magic and Christianity and everything in between. Because there are bits and pieces of the bigger picture in each one of these practices. And when we openly and with forgiveness and compassion view these other concepts and view these other ideas and become open-minded so that we can extract the wisdom that works for us. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years or so. As I said earlier, I'm an initiated magician, shaman, nutrition coach, personal trainer, meditation coach, Reiki master, former MMA fighter, and so on. What I'm going to do to present this information to you is I'm going to share the story of how I came upon it, because I believe that instead of just throwing a bunch of facts at you, sharing stories is going to help you understand it at a deeper level. I'm going to share my story and bits and pieces of it very vulnerably. I'm going to share some very personal stuff with you. But I'm fine with that. I've finished my healing. I'm totally open with my past and things that I've been through, and I don't feel emotional charges from them anymore. At the end of sharing my story, I'm going to share the punchline. I'm going to share with you what the greatest secret actually is, what it means to us individually, how we can continue to develop it in our lives and to access, the freedom and the happiness that every one of us deserves. It's our birthright. It's what we're here for. And now is the time for us to find it within ourselves, to heal ourselves so that we can access that state of consciousness all of the time. Not just sometimes, not just when we're having a good day, not just when things are going well, and then crashing and burning when things don't go well. I mean all the time. Accessing that state of consciousness and living from it all the time. And that's what's possible for each and every one of us. Okay. In 2006, I was homeless and jobless, sleeping on friends' couches. I had a breakup happen shortly before I got fired from my job the next day. A friend sat me down and all but forced me to watch the movie The Secret. Now, 6 months before that, I was standing in line at a forum here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, waiting to go see the first mixed martial arts fight that was ever legal in our province, Nova Scotia. Before that, you could only go other places like the US to be able to find mixed martial arts fights. And in 2006, I was sitting in this lineup. It was raining. I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, the girl I was with, and waiting in the rain to go into this forum. I had nosebleed seats at the very back of the seating. And I looked into that cage and I saw the fighters fighting, and I said, one day I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be in that cage someday. 6 months later, broken up with this girl. She kicks me out. I get fired from my job, sleeping on my friend's couch. He says, you have to watch the movie The Secret. Now, I watched the movie The Secret, and within a year, I fought my first professional mixed martial arts fight. I had a guy came to our gym. We had 5 weeks notice. I had to train for 5 weeks to prepare for it. And now I've been training martial arts for 10 years before that. So I wasn't brand new to it by any means, but I wasn't ready to fight. I was a big guy. I was 260 pounds, pretty overweight. And I had my first MMA fight. I almost lost in the first round. I ended up winning the fight by 1 point, and that started a 21 fight mixed martial arts career. Now, again, I started that whole vision when I was homeless and jobless. Just after I had that fight, I moved to a new city. I created a vision board, and I took one of the fighters who were on that card, and I took his head off, and I put my head on his head and put it on my vision board. So it's a picture of him in that cage, the same cage that I said that I would fight him someday. I went on from there, eventually went to school for business. I had that totally paid for. I started opening my own business. I started having a rock star kind of lifestyle in my fighting career. I was fighting for world championships, fighting on pay-per-view television, fighting all over the country, all expenses paid. I was dating models, hanging out with UFC fighters in some cases, doing heavy drugs with them, having just a crazy, crazy lifestyle. Crazy lifestyle. Drinking and driving while doing drugs at the same time, hanging out with very dangerous people, all for this rush, all to keep moving forward. I went from being this poor kid with lots of traumas, insecure, very shy, overweight, and all of these different self-esteem issues into becoming this nationally recognized pay-per-view mixed martial arts fighter, championship contender in a very short period of time. And the thing that really got me there was the visualization and the seeing it in my mind first and following it and taking action. I ended up going to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts in Vegas and had it completely paid for. And then when I was there, that's when I started seeing some of these really high-level fighters using heavy drugs like cocaine. When I saw them using heavy drugs like cocaine, that created the belief in my mind that, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. And that was really the beginning of my life sort of taking a very different direction. In 2012, I fought a guy from California who was a multiple world Muay Thai champion in Thailand. I fought him at the same forum that I watched the fights for outside in the rain as the main event of that fight. So this is the dream. This is the dream that 6 years later I said one day I'll be in there. Now not only have I been in there multiple times before this fight, but now I'm the main event of the fight. The fight happened in the first round. I'm winning. I'm picking this guy apart. And 3 seconds before the round was over, he knocked me out cold. I was unconscious for at least 2 minutes or so. That's what they tell me. I don't remember. I stood up and gave an interview to the post-fight announcer. I went out of the cage and gave an interview to the newspaper, got into a stretcher, was wheeled out into an ambulance, and I don't remember any of that. The memory still hasn't come back to this day. I realized at that time that, I can give this sport everything I have and still not do well. Now, what I didn't know at the time is I was probably feeling guilty about all of the things I was doing when I wasn't fighting, which were causing me to believe that I didn't deserve to actually win these types of fights, and I'll talk more about that later. I was dating a model at the time. My relationship ended. I started just falling apart. I was totally broken up about it. I couldn't figure out why. I didn't even really want to be in the relationship, but I was just destroyed. I was heartbroken and sick to my stomach, and in some cases even feeling suicidal and totally depressed. I completely hit rock bottom at this point in my career, in my life. I was losing my apartment. I didn't have any money. Things were not going well. I turned back to the movie The Secret. And I watched it again. This is probably around 2012 now. And I thought to myself, 500 million people have watched this movie. Why are so many people still suffering? There's got to be something missing. There's got to be something in there they haven't included. And so I just started obsessively researching the people in the movie. I looked up Bob Proctor. I looked up Abraham Hicks. I looked up, she wasn't in the main movie, but she was in another version of it. And all of the other different teachers that were in that movie. John DeMartini, Greg Braden, I think was in it too, or I stumbled upon him later. And I started learning that there's so much more than just thinking things and attracting them to us. There's so much more to it. It's so much deeper. And if you experience any level of trauma in your life, it's not that easy. It's not as easy as just thinking about what you want and expecting it to come to you. There's so much more involved to it. And so I just went on a journey. I started studying deeply on how to heal myself, how to actually reprogram these challenges that were holding me back. I studied things like EFT, emotional freedom technique. I got to hypnotism sessions. I took a transcendental meditation course. I started researching different ways to heal myself. I doing psychology, doing sound healing, just everything I could find. Tried everything. Finally, after researching the secrets for so long and really starting on this journey, I was still stressed and anxious, couldn't figure out again why this thing was happening with this ex-girlfriend. Why was I so wrapped up in it? And the same friend that suggested that I watch the movie The Secret said, why don't you smoke some cannabis and just relax? Why don't you just smoke some cannabis and relax? And at the time, I didn't use cannabis. I used heavy drugs, but I didn't smoke weed. It wasn't something that I was drawn to. And I thought, you know, I don't know what else to do. I'm freaking out. I'm so anxious. I don't know what else I can do. So I smoked some weed and I meditated. And during that meditation, I had a realization. I realized that my relationships with women in my life were rooted in my relationship with my mother. And I was taken to foster care when I was 9 years old, out of my mother's custody. And that trauma had been playing in my relationships ever since. I started going to psychology, I started going to counseling, I started digging this stuff up and really learning about how it was affecting me as an adult. And that created an entire journey in my life of deeper and more elaborate forms of healing and really understanding the mind and how we create our lives. And so years go by, I end up opening a nutrition store, I become a nutrition coach, I work with 1,500 clients, I eventually open a supplement store, and then I open a wellness center. And I'm in this wellness center. I've got a new girlfriend now, completely different girl than the last one. And this relationship's now falling apart too. Same thing, we started our relationship using heavy drugs, partying and drinking and things like that, and the relationship's starting to fall apart. I'm realizing that's not a lifestyle I want anymore. I start changing from it, she goes in a different direction, and here I am again, relationship over. All of a sudden, this guy comes into my life out of nowhere. He's a shaman. He just comes in and says, I'm here to help you. Well, that's strange. This is in 2015. What do you mean you're here to help me? He's like, I don't know. I'm here to help you. At first, I thought the guy was nuts. Honestly, I did. But as we started to spend time together, I realized he was serious. He really was here to help me. He was helping me understand my body and how I store pain in my body, how different forms of old trauma store in our body, and how we can use things like plant medicines to start to heal ourselves. The guy even has the same birth date as me. That's the crazy thing. At some point in our relationship, he took me through a DMT ceremony, dimethyltryptamine. Now, I'd already used DMT before that, but not with a shaman. The experience was so life-changing that it just transformed what I knew about the universe and my place in it and how I felt as a part of the universe. In that experience, I became God. I became the everything. I became creation. I became the force behind the entire universe. And I experienced it so real that to this day, I don't question that that was a real experience. It's unforgettable. And it changed me. It completely changed me as a human being. A few months later, in October of 2015, I'm still going through this breakup. This guy has now gone with his family and done his own things. And a guy comes into my life asking me to mentor him. He wanted me to mentor him for graphic design work. And at some point after a few weeks or whatever, he says, have you ever experienced a high magic ceremony before? I was like, magic? What do you mean, like Wicca, like witchcraft? He's like, oh, those are forms of magic, but high magic is about working with the higher consciousness. I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, well, I can initiate you, but if I initiate you, we're going to have to use psilocybin mushrooms. It's going to be a very intense experience. Sure, let's do it. And so I got initiated into high magic. Now, most people don't even know what that is. Freemasonry is a form of high magic. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a form of high magic. At their fundamental core, Christian mysticism and the Knights Templar would practice different forms of high magic. High magic is a specific type of practice, a specific type of magic that brings you up to the perspective of your higher mind. It, like an elevator, kind of takes you up to your higher consciousness and allows you to see your life, your future, and your past, and the present moment from the perspective of your higher self. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly life-changing, and I had no idea what it was. So I got initiated, and my life changed immediately. I recognized the pattern that destroyed this relationship and a deeper understanding of all the other relationships. Not only was the foster care situation causing me to be afraid of my partner leaving me, but it was also causing me to cheat on them and lie to them in the beginning of the relationship to subconsciously push them away. I didn't even know that part. I didn't even realize that part until this ceremony. And so from that point forward, I can't remember how many ceremonies we did, dozens at least. My life completely transformed from that point forward. And it keeps getting deeper, but I mean, I understood that magic is real. This stuff is real. The things that I experienced in my life within the first month after that initiation, I mean, for the sake of humility, I can't share the details, but huge sums of money came into my life. Huge gifts came into my life that people just gave me for nothing. Amazing relationships came into my life shortly after my wellness center closed. Only a few months later, I let go of that burden. So much changed. initiation is a powerful ceremony that magicians put initiates through to pass on the wisdom of magic. This has been happening since the beginning of time, since the beginning of whatever beings we are or have evolved from. This has been happening for a very, very long time. Freemasonry, again, initiates people. Hermetic Order of the Dawn initiates people. Christianity initiates people and calls it a baptism. It's the same idea. It's a ceremony that represents the death of our ignorant self and the rebirth of our wise self, or our true self, our authentic self. May of 2016, I sent an email to Rich Litvin, a very powerful coach that I found on YouTube, and begged him to coach me. And around the exact same time, I went to Peru for the very first time to experience my first ayahuasca ceremonies. I experienced 3 ayahuasca ceremonies during that experience. They completely transformed my life. Completely, I had no idea what ayahuasca was. I know I keep saying completely changed my life, but I mean, it's like, that's what it's like on this journey. It's like every huge transformation, it's like, holy shit, did that really just happen? And it just keeps happening, keeps happening, keeps happening. When we're on this journey, the transformations become really extraordinary, and they just keep growing, and things keep getting better. So in Peru, Mother Ayahuasca essentially gave me the message to nurture the roots. Now, I had so much ayahuasca, or such an intense experience, the second ceremony, that I didn't think I was ever going to do ayahuasca again. But it was such a powerful experience that I decided to bring a group of people back with me in October of 2016. In that experience, the entire trip to Peru was life-changing. At one point, the girls that we were with wanted to go to a cathedral, a Catholic cathedral. Now, at that time, I had a real beef against Christianity. The Catholic cathedral in Peru, in Cusco, is built on top of an Inca temple, because the Spanish came and murdered most of the Inca people, destroyed most of their temples, these ancient temples that could have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, longer than we realize they are, and built churches on top of them. So I didn't really want to go there. I wasn't really up for it. The night before, though, the guy that owns the retreat center that I go to, and the family that I'm very close to in Peru, he comes to our Airbnb, and he says that he's a Buddha Christian Inca. He's a Buddhist Christian Inca. So how does that work? How does an Inca, which is the ancient Peruvian race, the natives there, and a Christian and a Buddhist come together? I don't get that. Not based on the Christianity that I know and that I've seen in the world. So I was very confused. So the next day when the girls wanted to go to the cathedral, I was even more like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there, but maybe I should follow this and see what happens. I go into the cathedral, and there's a big statue of Christ standing there all bloody on the cross. And I'm looking at it, and I'm just thinking, how is this a symbol of love and peace? How is this a symbol of forgiveness and an open-heartedness for the world? I don't understand it. And so I decided to pray. And prayers happen in magic all the time. It's a normal part of prayer, but I didn't understand how Christ fit into this whole formula. So I prayed, and I asked, and I said, Christ, I know that I create my reality, and that my reality is here as a gift. So I have to know why this bloody image, why this tortured person on a cross, why do I have to see this image? Why is it in my reality? And as if somebody was speaking in my ear, a voice said, let this image be a reminder of your own crucifixion. Let this image be a reminder of your transformation from ignorance and pain and suffering into remembering and peace and happiness. Let this symbol represent your journey, your great work. And I had tears running down my eyes, honestly. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. By the way, this is not a presentation about conforming or converting anyone to Christianity. Let me just say that straight out. When we left the church, not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not what it is. When we left the church, I went to see my buddy Marco, who's a tour guide in Peru, and I saw him there the last time I was there, and he was so excited. We had a group of people with us. He's like, wow, Ricky, I'm going to take you on a special tour. And this is just a walking tour regularly. But he gets a bus. He has a friend who has a bus. He's like, come on, everyone, get in the bus. We're going to go on a special tour this time. He's driving up this mountain. We're driving up this mountain. We have no idea where we're going. We get to the top of the mountain. We get out of the bus, and what's there? A big fucking Jesus statue standing there like this, literally right after we left the cathedral. And I was like, okay, that's crazy. Like, I don't know what's going on here. It doesn't make sense to me. The next night, we go to Etnica's, we go to the ayahuasca retreat, and we drink our ayahuasca. The first ceremony, not very much happened. The second ceremony, I asked the shamans I said, I would like to have enough ayahuasca to never have to do ayahuasca ever again. Can you do that for me? And they said, oh yeah, for sure, we'll do that for you. So the cups are about this big. Most people got about this much, and I got a full cup. They filled it right to the top. And within, I don't know how long, 10 minutes, I was completely gone in this journey. I was throwing up, felt like hours. The shaman comes over, and I say, we're almost finished, right? He says, what? I said, we're almost done, right? No. Everyone in the hut starts laughing. The others told me the next day it was like 30 minutes into the ceremony. They hadn't even felt the effects yet, and I was ready for it to be over. From that point, I slipped into total blackness. Just total blackness. There was nothing there. I wasn't there. Ricky Goodall didn't exist anymore. My thoughts weren't there. I didn't realize I was in a room with other people. I was just in infinite blackness, infinite nothingness, forever. That's what it felt like. And I was terrified. I was so scared. And I was sobbing and saying, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? What is this? What is this? Nothing. No response. Nothing. What is this? What is this? What is this? Nothing. Nothing came back. Nothing responded to me. Finally, I'm sobbing and I'm saying, I want to go home. What is this? What is this? And this feminine voice says, what's wrong? And I knew in that moment that it was Mother Ayahuasca. I said, what is this? I want to go home. She says, what's wrong? I thought you wanted to know what it's like to be the creator. I thought you wanted to know what it's like to be God. She said, don't you realize that at this level of your consciousness, you're all that is, all that ever was and all that ever will be. At this level of what you are, you're the only thing in creation. There's nothing for you to compare to. There's nothing for you to be in relationship to. There's nothing for you to interact with. There's no environment. There's no creation. There's no manifestation up here. It's all just you existing infinitely forever by yourself. She said, don't you realize this life you've created as Ricky Goodall is the gift you've given yourself to take a vacation away from knowing what you really are? She said, don't you recognize that the ancient people never bow down out of fear of their creator. They bow down out of compassion. Thank you for this gift of separation. Thank you for this gift of suffering. Thank you for this gift of relationship and of life. Because even the starving child in Africa suffers nothing compared to infinite loneliness. And this was so overwhelming for me. It was so much to take in one experience. Then all of a sudden I started seeing the six-sided star, which I'm going to draw here on the board, just for reference. Mind my artistic skills. This is the six-sided star. This symbol started burning into my mind, and Mother Ayahuasca was showing it to me. I'm sure you can see it okay. You know, the one that looks better though. The idea was just burning into my mind. The star was just burning and burning and burning into my mind. She kept saying, study this symbol, study Hebrew, study Egyptian forms of magic. Study this symbol, find out what it means, look for Hebrew, look for Egyptian, understand this stuff. Now, before I got connected, before she showed me that star, I'd already started studying the pentagram because I learned about it in magic when I got initiated. So that's an important symbol in this practice too, which I'll explain later. I just dropped my markers and my brush. So she said, study this stuff. You have to know it. You're gonna take it. You're gonna share it with other people. She also said, you're going to start a religion and you're going to bring ayahuasca home. And I had no idea what that meant. Obviously, I'm in this trip. I'm thinking that I'm just obviously really high on ayahuasca. We leave the retreat. Obviously, there's so much more that happened in that a ceremony that's just not applicable to anything else I'm going to explain right now. Well, there was one other part where I saw a king and a queen, and they were there, and they were just the perfect manifestation of masculine and feminine energy. And my head hurt, and it hurt to be there. It was overwhelming. And they said, it probably hurts to be here right now. You're not ready to be here. You're not ready to be here yet, but someday you'll raise your consciousness to be able to really perceive us and perceive us in your life. And the king and the queen represented the masculine and feminine energy, and the yin yang would be the black and white energy in the universe, and or life and light, if you want to, or so many other associations. And so the next day, we're finished the retreat. I didn't have the third ceremony because it was too much. I threw up and had diarrhea for about 3 hours after everyone finished the ceremony. It was brutal. And then afterwards, we all went on a tour with Brian Forster, the author I mentioned at the beginning of this book. Brian Forster's written 21 books or 22 books on ancient human technology. He's been to every ancient site on the planet, the pyramids, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, Göbekli Tepe, Gudang Penang, all of the others. He's got videos on YouTube, so many videos, thousands of videos, I believe, on YouTube of him actually there showing you what he's looking at and how it works. And I'm not going to get into the details because it's just too, again, that's what the book list is for. That I'm going to give you later. You can dive into this. But basically what Brian has discovered with many scientists, many archaeologists, many historians, is that there's an entire civilization that existed on our planet before. Probably a variation of humans and maybe other forms of beings like humans, sentient beings like humans. And it's all over the world. It's all over the planet. Some of it's under the sea because 12,000 years ago, there was an ancient flood. Now, the Bible talks about it, calling it Noah's flood. I don't think the dates are as accurate, but the story, I don't think that there was an ark. I think that there were underground cities and maybe even cities on tops of mountains. Like Machu Picchu in Peru is a city on top of a mountain, and underneath the pyramids of Giza, there's more built under the pyramids than there is above the pyramids. He's seen some of these areas. He said, there's so much built under the pyramids that we haven't even come close to discovering it all yet. Most of it's blocked off and you can't even access it. These pyramids are massive. There's 500, what was it? 500 different, I don't know if it's 2.2 million blocks, 500 pounds each or something, or I forget what that number is. 2.2 million blocks in each pyramid. Each block is cut to fit perfectly to the blocks above, below, and around it, like a jigsaw puzzle piece. It's lined up with northeast, southwest perfectly, and it's level within a fraction of a degree, or fraction of an inch. Like, that's ridiculous. How we can't create anything even close to that now. There's nothing that we can create that comes remotely close to it. There's evidence in the Sphinx that it could be up to 36,000 years old. 36,000, not 4 or 5 or 6,000. So much older than that. There's a pyramid in Cancun, outside of Cancun, in the Yucatan Peninsula, El Castillo. It's a pyramid, and there's a pyramid inside that, and then another more ancient pyramid inside that. They have no idea how old these pyramids are. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And so the idea is that this flood happened 12,000 years ago and almost wiped out our civilization completely. And the only ones that survived were the wisdom keepers, the ones that could build the underground cities, the ones that could build the cities on tops of mountains. The rest of the civilization, for the most part, was wiped out, the ones that couldn't hide in the mountains or hide somewhere else. Most of this technology was lost, and there's a reason for that too. There's a 26,000 year, again, you guys shouldn't believe any of this stuff, just let it inspire you. According to the Mayans, according to the ancient Hindus, there's a 26,000 year cycle. And the ancient yogis, sorry, sometimes my terminology is not as accurate, it's part of my ignorance. 26,000 year cycle of consciousness that descends from an age of higher consciousness to an age of lower consciousness and then comes back up again. The belief is that on or around December 21st, 2012, there was a shift in the ages where we actually went from an age of very low consciousness to an age of higher consciousness. There are many theories about this. I'm not sure which one is accurate, but they all say that we're on our way up. All the ones I've seen, at least. Some say that we've shifted right into the gold age. Some say that we've shifted into the electrical age. We're moving toward the gold age. Maybe another 1,000 or 2,000 years we'll get to the gold age. But they all say that we're moving toward a time of peace and prosperity. All of them do. These are very Mayan calendar, the Kali Yugas, or the Yuga, sorry, the Kali Yuga is the one we just got out of. I forget what the Sanskrit name is for the other one. And this is the information to look up. You can find it yourself. Brian's got tons of these books. One of his books, I have it somewhere here. It's called Aftershock, and it's the ancient cataclysm that wiped out humanity, basically. And he's very detailed. He's got lots of scientific evidence in this book. So the idea is that consciousness is moving in a cycle, and that we're on our way back up again, and that all of the prophecies about a second coming and a coming age and an age of prosperity, an age of peace, they're backed up by civilizations all over the world. Back this idea up. This isn't new. The Knights Templar support this idea. The Buddhists support this idea. The Christians have been saying it for a long time. But lots of other ancient civilizations believed it too. There were even carvings in the temples at Göbekli Tepe that gave us reason to believe that they knew that we were going to find this pyramid, or this temple rather, at this time. They carved actual astrological information inside of the temple where we would find it at this exact time. And they knew it. How could they possibly know that? Because they're at a significantly higher level of consciousness, and we're not there yet. We're on our way, but we're not there yet. When I got home from Peru in October of 2016, I moved to Timberley and basically started my work. From that time, from Timberley until just a couple of months ago, I performed over 300 plant medicine ceremonies using medicines, sometimes no medicines at all, but medicines as simple as sage or incense, cannabis, psilocybin, dimethyltryptamine, not ayahuasca by myself, but ayahuasca with others, San Pedro, and others. And also at the same time started studying everything I could related to Qabalah, which is, this symbol led me on quite a journey, and I'm going to share that with you for a quick second here. So this symbol, this six-sided star, means a whole bunch of things. I'm not going to share all of them with you, but the first place I got to was alchemy. And so this symbol represents the four elements. When you combine these four symbols together, which are air, fire, water, earth, you get this symbol. You get what's called the tetragrammaton. So that symbol represents consciousness as a what's the best way to explain it? The four elements represent the entire universe, everything in the universe, except for consciousness. Consciousness is represented by a different element, which I'll talk about later. So as I started diving into this work, I started studying Qabalah, which is the science of the tree of life, the wisdom of the tree of life in the ancient Hebrew system, which very well could have been influenced by the ancient Egyptian systems, probably was, from what I understand. And alchemy, which is a very similar system, uses a lot of the same concepts, uses the elements, and then other things like Hermeticism, which is a deeper understanding of alchemy, Taoism, which is a form of inner alchemy, which gets into Tai Chi and QiGong and things like that, and probably forms of Chinese medicine originally. Started looking up people like Sir Isaac Newton. The founding father of physics was a practicing alchemist. He translated one of the most fundamental, important documents in alchemy, and it's out there in the public for anyone to find. The founding father of physics, who discovered the formula of gravity, was a fucking magician. He's an alchemist. This is a big deal, but most of us don't even know why magic's important, so we don't really know, well, who cares, right? I studied Gnosticism, I studied theurgy, I studied magic, I studied Christianity, I studied Hinduism, I studied Buddhism, and learned from any kind of teacher I could find, watching videos, reading articles, and just kind of became obsessive for about 2 years straight. Obsessive into this, and healing myself at the same time. I performed, again, hundreds of ceremonies. I uprooted childhood traumas I didn't even know exist. I found sexual traumas. I found emotional traumas. I found traumas where I was afraid of my parents dying multiple times. Traumas where I was afraid of my brother dying multiple times. Didn't remember any of them before this stuff. As they came to the surface, oh right, I didn't remember any of those things. And all of this stuff started to come up. As it started to come up, I had to start processing the past. I had to start really digging into it. And at some point, things got really, really deep. I had severe symptoms of mental illness, social isolation, anger, depression, paranoia, jealousy, just like the deepest level of all of my character defects amplified in that experience. Totally scared, unable to even really live a normal life. I just had to go inward almost all the time. I could work fine. I could get in the zone when I was working, but that was pretty much it. I started healing all of my relationships, the people that are alive and even passed away. I healed my relationships to my entire family, my father, my mother, my brother, my sister, healed my relationship to my grandmother who passed away, her boyfriend who was the one who sexually abused me, and every other relationship. Started learning how to actually deeply heal and forgive myself and others on an incredibly fundamental way. Something that's much deeper than just saying, I forgive you. Believe me, it's got to come out in different ways, and I'll explain it shortly. So I decided to finally go to Peru again in August of 2018. 2 weeks before this trip is when I uprooted part of the sexual trauma that I experienced. So at this point, I'm in a severe state of what the doctors were calling symptoms of complex PTSD. Not just PTSD, but complex PTSD, multiple traumas throughout my life that were now all surfacing in the form of mental illness and different types of struggles. I go back to Peru again, and when I get there, I didn't expect what was going to happen. First of all, it was winter. I didn't realize how cold it was. I ran into challenge after challenge after challenge. It was incredibly a big struggle the entire time, except when I went to Etnicus for the ayahuasca ceremonies. That was the easiest part of the entire trip. And during that experience, After my first ceremony, I saw the six-sided star again, and Mother Ayahuasca kept saying to me, you know your purpose, you know your purpose, you know what you're meant to do. Don't surrender into what you are, surrender into what you are. And the next day, the shaman said to me, you're a shaman. You're a master. You're a doctor. You're meant to do this work. You can do this work with plant medicines. You can do it without it. You can do it in the middle of the woods. You can do it in a ceremony. You can do it wherever you like. He gave me this necklace, which is ayahuasca, and these seeds, which I can't remember if they're ayahuasca or chacruna. And he blessed this necklace and said to me that I can take this anywhere I go. After that, I went and had a San Pedro initiation. San Pedro's a psychedelic cactus, and I went into the woods, into the mountains with a shaman for an entire day, 10-hour journey, fasted, barely any sleep, 3 hours into the Andes Mountains and an hour and a half on foot, and cried and cried and cried for hours. Now there's a part I didn't tell you because I mentioned it earlier, and I want to make sure I circle back. When Mother Ayahuasca said, you're going to start a religion and bring ayahuasca to Canada, 2 weeks after that second time I went to Peru back in October of 2016, 2 weeks later I went to see my lawyer, and my lawyer said, hey, I realized you're in Peru lately. Did you know that you can register a religion and bring ayahuasca to Canada legally? Mother Ayahuasca told me that I was going to do that 2 or 3 weeks before. So we did it. We registered a religion, we brought in shamans, we created a religion based on these ideas, based on this truth, and have in the past had a very successful, very powerful ayahuasca retreat and helped transform some people's lives and heal them very deeply. In October of last year, I went to California to visit the coach that I told you guys earlier or told you all earlier that I reached out to named Rich Liff and begged him to coach me. Rich didn't respond to that email directly, but his administrator did and eventually hooked me up with one of his coaches. She mentored me for months for free. And then I worked under an apprenticeship for her for more than a year. And then this past October, I went to California to meet Rich, meet the coaches, and do some deeper work. And in that intensive, I got to get up and speak my truth, which is what the greatest secret is, which I'm going to share with you all shortly. After that, I finally go to Cancun. And in March of this year, my engagement ended in January, a relationship that it wasn't working for either one of us. Neither one of us were ready to admit it. Our own patterns were causing us to stay attached to the relationship instead of being connected to our own higher self. We separated. My life just continued to kind of change from there and grow, and all of the deeper healing I had to do continued. In March of this year, I went to Cancun, Mexico, to go to the pyramids, go to some of these ancient sites, and just again get connected to this truth. I learned that El Castillo, the pyramid in just outside of Cancun, the Yucatan Peninsula, is for Quetzalcoatl, and Quetzalcoatl is almost like the Mayan Christ. They believe he's the Mayan version of Christ, or the incarnation of Christ. They actually believe he's a reincarnation of Christ. And so I performed ceremonies on that pyramid. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but something really fucking crazy happened. And it was on the equinox. I got to be there on the equinox. So if you look up videos of the equinox, El Castillo, Chichen Itza, during the equinox and the videos that happened, you'll find out what happened during that day. Finally, this past Easter weekend, I performed I'm about to move from an old house into this new place I'm at. I performed some really, really powerful medicine ceremonies for the weekend. One of them with my brother. My whole family was there. Healing ceremony with my brother is very beautiful. And basically 4 ceremonies in a row. And in those ceremonies, and I say this with humility because I'm a human being and I could be wrong, but in these ceremonies, I connected to my higher self. I connected to God, and God spoke through me, or creator or universe, or whatever term you prefer. God spoke through me and told me it's time to share this with others. It's time to get this out there in the world. You can't hold this to yourself anymore. You can't keep it for yourself anymore. You know too much. You can't keep it inside. You have to share it with others. Finally, on the 4th ceremony on the money, I had a full Kundalini awakening. I laid on the floor for 20 minutes in pure bliss. I realized how connected I am to the rest of the universe. I had a full experience of recognizing our greatness and what we truly are. And so from then until now, I've been preparing this presentation. I've been preparing the material that I'm now about to share with you and what this means for all of us. So first of all, the greatest secret is not a secret. It's an idea. It's a collection of a whole bunch of secrets that are, for the most part, not really known in our society. Most of us don't realize what they are. This isn't my idea, but it's just my perspective. I've read plenty of books that share my idea. They're just not well known. There's nobody in our generation, in our time, presenting this message in a way that others can understand it and absorb it. Most of these books, I've got literally dozens of books around me right now. They're all written in code. They're coded for initiates. When these magicians write books, they don't just write a book, they write it in total. It's totally coded. And the more you study magic, and the more you study alchemy, the more you study spirituality, and the elements, and ancient human history, and science, and all of it, the more you understand the books. But if you don't do that work, it's almost impossible to read them. They're so thick, and they take time. You have to read them over and over and over again. In the beginning, my ego rejected these ideas, completely rejected them. But over time, my ego started to be more tamed, and I'm beginning to believe in myself and my experiences, and it's becoming something that is not just accepted, but becoming part of who I am. Aristotle said the mind has a mechanism of self-contradiction. Let me say that again. The mind has a mechanism of self-contradiction. That means that Santa Claus or Bruce Lee or Jesus Christ or the Buddha could manifest right in front of us right now. Wow, this would be so amazing. We'd just be like, holy shit, what a miracle. In a week from now, oh yeah, that was really crazy. Can you believe that? In a month from now, we probably won't even talk about it anymore, and we might not even believe it anymore. We'll question it and wonder if it was even really true, or if it was an illusion, or if everyone was just in the wrong state of mind or something. We'll question it. Our minds are designed to have self-contradiction, and that's a gift for us, which I'll explain about later. If you knew who you were, there would be no fun left. Believe me, if you knew who and what you really were right from the beginning, there'd be no fun. There'd be no fun getting there yourself. I imagine the mind like a sandcastle on a windy beach, right? So you've got this beautiful sandcastle on a windy beach, but over time it fades away, and truth fades away. What we know to be true fades away. So we have to continue to practice, strengthen it through practice. Okay, so I'm going to get into the thick of it now. First of all, I believe that we are all consciousness, or the universe, or God, pretending to be human beings. I believe that you're God, and that you've created this moment, that you've created this video, that you've created this webinar and this experience to remind you of that. I truly, in my heart, believe that. I completely believe that with everything that I am. I believe that we are all experiencing our own individual perspective of reality. That you may think that I'm over here talking to you on this video, but you have no evidence to know that I even exist other than through your senses, which we know are bound by the physical reality. There's another world way beyond the physical reality. Our true being of what we are is way beyond the physical reality. So how can we trust what we experience in the physical reality? And based on quantum science, modern quantum science, based on ancient spirituality, we can't. You are your creation. You've created all of it. I believe that, and this is a big one, guys, everyone. I'm trying to say this, get out of the habit of saying guys all the time. I know it's different these days. I believe that life is sort of like a video game. That each of us is playing the video game, that your body, your character is the character and the avatar in the video game, that your entire video game experience is unique to you and you alone. That every single person that you've ever met in your entire life, from the time you were born until the time you pass on, if that's even real, every single person you've ever met is here to support your game experience. Whether they're an enemy, whether they're a friend, whether they're a family member, whether they're a stranger, the person who cleans your apartment, the person who cuts you off in traffic, they're all here for you to give you a game experience. Because what is the alternative? We already know. We talked about it earlier. The alternative is nothing. The alternative is nothing or perfection, and that gets boring really fast. So we have to grow into remembering who we are to really experience the miracle of life. I believe that our higher self, our higher self, not our human self, not Ricky Goodall, but our higher self is the being known as Horus, known as Yeheshua, known as Christ, known as Buddha, known as many different names. And I'm going to show you ways to understand that to be true shortly. Mithras, Krishna, Apollo, there are many, Quetzalcoatl, many names for this higher self, but I believe that we are all it and that we're just pretending to be human. I believe that I've discovered a methodology that can heal the body, train the mind, and connect us to that higher consciousness so that we can live from that place instead of living from this place, the physical reality. Don't get me wrong, we still got to interact and be in the physical reality. Otherwise, what's the point of being here? But we can live from that place and experience physical reality from that perspective. I believe that God is the structure of the game and that we are the Christ figure in the game, pretending to be a human being, raising our consciousness to the awareness of being the reflection of that macrocosm. And again, I'll get deeper into these ideas shortly. Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase a bunch of important quantum science ideas and philosophical ideas. I'm going to paraphrase them, and I'm going to go fast because there's a lot of information here. I know I'm going fast already. There's a lot of information here, and I'm just not able to explain all of these ideas in detail without paraphrasing them. So in saying that, these quantum science experiments, I'm simplifying them, but I've already in the past been attacked by people that are quantum science like enthusiasts saying that's not that simple. So you shouldn't believe anything I'm saying. This is just what I've learned from my mentors, from my coaches, from the people out there that I trust. And the people who have attacked me, I don't really trust them. So I'm not really worried about what they think, frankly. In the 1800s, there was an experiment called the Copenhagen interpretation, or a theory called the Copenhagen interpretation, which essentially suggests that physical reality is not just physical, but it's physical and non-physical at the same time. That means that this wall only appears to be real based on our senses. The double slit experiment, performed sometime after that, supported this idea and said that reality only exists if there's someone observing it. When there's nobody observing it, it doesn't exist. So the idea there is the room behind you doesn't exist if you're not observing it. You say, yeah, but somebody else is observing it. Yeah, but you're observing them. So who knows if they're real too, right? This is the question we have to ask ourselves. Dr. J.B. Ryan was a psychologist and a parapsychologist and a researcher of paranormal activities in the 1930s. He had a man walk into his office and say, I can control the roll of the dice with my mind. J.B. Ryan says, okay, show me how to do it. So he does, he rolls the dice, and at a rate of 7% above random, which is actually really huge, the guy could control the roll of the dice with his mind. So his mind determined what was going to happen in physical reality. We already figured out that the observation creates physical reality, but now we know that the expectation creates physical reality too. Not just what you're observing is real, but your expectation of how it's going to be is real. So they tried it with radioactive decaying matter. They tried the same experiments with random objects like pens and pencils and stuff, and it was the same. He had it come out at 7% above random based on his mind. And there have been so many other theories since then, but that's just one of the first and one of the most popular. There's another theory called quantum entanglement that basically says that all particles are connected even at infinite distances and respond to things in real time. And since we all come from the same Big Bang, then we have to all be connected, obviously. We have to be connected through quantum entanglement somewhere or another. The holographic theory is another scientific theory that suggests that actually reality is a hologram, that none of it's real. It only appears real because our senses make it real. The electrons in my left hand, the electrons in my right hand are repelling each other, creating an experience of physical reality. It's that simple. Electrons have a negative charge. Electrons are the outer shell of an atom. We have the electron, the proton, the nucleus. And since they have a negative charge, they repel each other, just like two magnets that repel each other with negative ends. Now, again, that's just a theory, but that's one of the simple ways to understand this idea. And there are infinite parallel realities. We've heard this enough times in our society by now, hopefully. And what does that mean? Well, I'm experiencing a parallel reality to you, but I also have infinite parallel realities in my own experience. The best way to understand that is through a theory called subjective reality. A man named Steve Pavlina, P-A-V-L-I-N-A, has so many incredible articles and blog articles on the idea of subjective reality. In an objective reality, you and I are experiencing the same universe together. But in a subjective reality, I'm experiencing the universe and you, unique to me. You're experiencing the universe and you, unique to you. And we have separate realities that are kind of coexisting in some ways, but overall they're unique to us and us alone. That means every person who's ever bothered you, every person that's ever done anything to annoy you, everything you've ever experienced in your life has been created for you by you. It's a tough one to accept, right? Because that means we have to take total responsibility. Another way to understand this is think about when you're dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're in the dream. Maybe you and I are talking in your dream, and the dream world looks so convincing and so real. But when you wake up, you realize that I'm not really there, that I was just there in your dream. That entire dream world wasn't real either, and you created all of it. That's the idea of subjective reality. We're all creating our own experiences. We're all playing our own version of the video game in the physical dimension. We're all creating our own experience. Elon Musk recently said, there's a 1 in a billion chances we're not playing in a simulation. 1 in a billion chances that we're not in a simulation. This is Elon Musk, founder of PayPal, founder of SpaceX, and now the CEO of Tesla, and maybe founder, I can't remember. But either way, he said 1 in a billion chances that we're not in a simulation. Jim Carrey recently had a whole thing on entertainment television where he came out and said, we're all just characters playing this game of life. We're all just here experiencing life, subjective in our own reality. Sir Isaac Newton, again, founding father of physics, studied the same stuff I studied, alchemy, Qabalah, the same material, which suggests the same idea, that everything exists in the mind. So then let's imagine that it's true. Let's imagine that we are playing a video game. What does it mean then? Well, we have to fucking learn how to hack the game so we can heal ourselves and change the state of the planet. We have to align with our mission, our purpose, so that we can contribute to that transformation. Imagine our body or our avatar as a super highly advanced biocomputer. It's got software, hardware, and everything. And that we are the observer, the pilot, piloting this body, pretending to be human. Now, this is an old idea. Again, Hebrews, Egyptians, Greeks, and even shamans had a much different way of understanding the body than we do. They didn't believe that we had one body. They believed that we had 5 bodies. Okay. The 5 bodies are air, fire, water, earth, or our mental, spiritual or electrical, emotional, and our physical body, and then represented by the element ether. There are many ways to represent this symbol. It could be in this or like this. There's a whole bunch of different ways. I choose the 6-sided star to represent the element ether in this case. Ether, which is our astral body. When we experience any type of pain or trauma, we experience it in every level of the being. We experience it in the mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, and the astral levels. So if we want to truly heal ourselves, we have to heal ourselves on every level. And the reason that's important is because each of these bodies stores information, and the information is what's screwing us up in our lives. Up to 75% of our core programming, of our beliefs about how the universe works, were formed in the first 12 years of our lives. Think about that. Up to 75% of our beliefs were formed in the first 12 years of our lives. I don't know about you, but that's scary for me, because I had a pretty rough time between 0 and 12. And what's even scarier than that is between 40 and 95% of our decisions that we make every single day are based on those beliefs. So your beliefs about relationships, success, happiness, health, all of it came from your childhood, and the unconscious decisions you're making every day are based on those beliefs. That's scary, right? I mean, if you're experiencing any suffering in your life, it's coming from those beliefs. Why is that important? Well, because our pain from the past, especially unhealed pain, goes on to inspire beliefs and lock them into place, which then influence and generate thoughts, and our thoughts influence our words, our habits, and our behavior. So let me say that again. If we have unhealed pain from the past, traumas, even if, let me say it this way. If your mother didn't give you a big hug for getting an 85 in the math test and instead said, why didn't you get 100? Then you've got one of these issues going on. These are traumas. These are painful events in our past that create beliefs about who we are as human beings and fundamentally affect our ability to live the life that we want. They completely reprogram us and hack our mind and just overwhelm us and hijack us. Pain locks in beliefs. Beliefs influence and generate thoughts. Thoughts influence our words, habits, and our behavior. Our words, habits, and our behavior are the vibratory signal and frequency that go out into the matrix and create an experience for us. If you say, I'm broke, well, your wish is my command. If you say, I'm depressed, well, your wish is my command. If you say, I'm sick, I'm this and that, well, that's what you're going to create. First starts in your words. But the scary part is not just the words, it's the unconscious behavior. It's the habits that we have that are formed from all the way back into our childhood. Our body's like an operating system that receives programs based on our experiences. So let me give you an example. You go to a driver ed school, you don't know how to drive a car, there's no program in there right now. You haven't created the program. You go through the experience of learning how to drive a car, now you've installed a new program, right? Let's say a month later you get into a car accident. Maybe you were texting on your phone, maybe you weren't paying attention, you were calling. Now you create a belief that you're a bad driver. So now from that point forward to the rest of your life, you drive like a bad driver, either too cautious, maybe speeding too much, not paying attention to the road. You've created this belief. Until that belief is healed, you're going to operate like a bad driver, subconsciously in some way or another. Chances of creating more accidents in the future are pretty good, actually, and it will continue going on from there. Likewise, if we experience sexual trauma as a child from a man or a woman or whatever it is, our relationship to that gender will be affected for the rest of our life if we don't heal that deep trauma. This stuff is really intense, and it's old, guys. This is ancient stuff. This is written in these magic books. It's all there. And I'll get into the details of how to actually understand it soon. Just checking my notes here. In order for me to find the sexual abuse trauma, which is the oldest trauma I experienced all the way back to 3 years old, that I remember. I mean, there were probably some stuff that wasn't directly related to me in my environment, but that happened to me directly was at 3 years old. I didn't find that trauma until I healed every other trauma that I'd ever been through. Again, hundreds of ceremonies. This work is really deep. And I was trained by these groups in California, Rich Litvin's coaches in how to do this work. I was trained by shamans. I was trained by magicians in how to do this work. It's intense work in some cases, but it's the only way that we reach that level of freedom. And I'm going to give you guys a very simple formula to start doing this work at the end of this video. The formula came to me after finishing a lot of this work. As we heal, we create room for new programming that allows us to create habits or, again, unconscious programs, just like computer programs that will help us create what we want. Think about it like this. Imagine that this body is like a sim character, right? Right now, you've got a program in there that says, I'm broke, I'm not financially successful, I never will be, I'll never have what I want. That belief may have been created all the way back when you were 6 years old, 7 years old. There's an experience with a parent, experience with a grandparent, experience with a teacher at school, whatever. And then your behavior reflected that belief because that's what happens. And then your life continued to reflect that belief being true. So it was stored at 5 years old, but your entire life reinforced the belief because you unconsciously behaved in alignment with the belief, therefore creating a reality that reflects the belief. And because it's never been healed and the pain has never been processed, the belief is unconscious. You don't even know it's there. But let's say we do some work, we heal the belief, we put a new belief in there that I create what I work for, or I create what I take action for, my ability to manifest a life I want is mine, and blah, 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 whatever other kind of beliefs you want. Now your subconscious programming, especially as you develop this as a habit, is going to start reflecting that belief. It's really that simple. But again, the pain exists in all levels of the being. So it's got to be healed in from the physical body. We got to cleanse. We have to get out all the shit that's in our body. We got to heal on an emotional level. We got to cry it out. We got to purge it out somehow. We got to heal on a spiritual level. We have to take action on actually moving forward. On electrical, we have to change our nervous system to actually take action on things in life and move forward into what we want. We have to heal on a mental level. We have to change the beliefs and the habits associated with it. What I'm explaining here is what the ancients called the great work. And I'm gonna show it in a little bit of an easier diagram to understand. Again, we have 5 bodies. And these 5 bodies are represented by the 5-sided star. Most of you probably recognize this symbol. This is a human. It's a symbol that represents a human being, but also represents a lot more than that, which I'm going to explain as we go. We've got the spiritual body represented by the element fire. We've got and you don't have to remember this stuff. There's a punchline at the end that's going to make it all make sense. The emotional body represented by the element water. The physical body represented by the element earth. And the mental body represented by the element air. And then finally the astral body represented by the element ether. These are the 5 bodies. As we heal these 5 bodies, we begin to harmonize those bodies, help them vibrate in harmony with one another, therefore creating this really highly evolved being. So each body has its own kind of frequency. It has its own kind of experience, own kind of layer, so to speak, of our being. If these bodies if this one has pain in, this one has pain in, this one has pain in, this one has pain in it, they're not vibrating in harmony with one another. Your ability to have courage is going to be affected by your emotional pain around last time you had to have courage around things, or your beliefs around things. Or if your physical body isn't trained for you to actually be able to handle yourself in physical situations, maybe you won't have the courage to actually do it. There's a whole system here that can help us understand how to heal our bodies. But again, I'm going to give you a really simple way to understand that at the end. So this is called the great work. This is the work that's necessary for enlightenment. The shamans call it absolute happiness. The Kabbalists call it the end of correction. The end of correction. The end of correcting our bodies and correcting our beliefs and our thoughts and our words, habits, and behavior so that we can live in alignment with our true purpose, the purpose that we came here to live, which we all have, and we can find it as we heal ourselves. I used to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. That wasn't my main purpose. And that was definitely my purpose at the time. It helped heal me, it helped express a lot of pain, but that's not my purpose. As I heal myself, I get more and more clear about what my purpose actually is. Okay. So again, this diagram represents the 5 bodies, and the purpose of the great work is to heal the 5 bodies. Now there's an interesting twist to all of this. The Hebrews and the Egyptians and the Greeks, but particularly the Hebrews, had a different way of understanding this symbol and our relationship to it. They described the elements using Hebrew words Yod, He, Shin, Vav, He, which again, directly translated, can mean as simple as fire, water, ether, air, earth, but they're way deeper than that. This name is so much deeper than that. This symbol is so deep, it'll take a lifetime to truly understand. But here's the kicker though. When you take these 5 elements individually, so in other words, when the bodies aren't healed, they exist individually as the 5 elements, as Yod, He, Shin, Vav, He. However, once the bodies are fully healed and now working in unity with each other, working in alignment with each other, they become a personification, or they become one being instead of 5 individual parts, and they become Yeheshua. You might recognize this name because it's a derivative of the name Jesus. So in other words, the name Yeheshua, the word Yeheshua, represents a human being who has healed themselves to the point where they are fully aligned with their higher self. So in other words, Yeheshua is an ancient Hebrew code name for the higher self, for the personification of the 5 elements, aware that they're playing themselves as a human being. So to understand that in a diagram, it's really quite simple. Think about it like this. This symbol represents the all, the creator. It also represents the yin-yang symbol. Fire, air, water, earth in balance with each other, or fire and water in balance with each other. So that represents God or creator. This represents Yeheshua or the higher self. And this represents the human self. Now, an easy way to understand that is like 7th dimension, 5th dimension, 3rd dimension, if you want to play with dimensional ideas. But basically the idea is that we're all Yeheshua pretending to be humans for the sake of growth, for the sake of experience, for the sake of merging our masculine and feminine energy to become one, so that we can actually access our true inherent nature. Horus, the ancient Egyptian equivalent to Christ, had one eye as the sun, one eye as the moon. What that meant was that he was both masculine and feminine energy perfectly balanced. Mithras and Krishna, same concepts. Yeheshua in the Gnostic Bible, same idea as this. Now there's a passage I want to read from the Gnostic Bible, which is apparently something this Yeheshua character said. And what he said was, when you make the 2 into 1, so when you make the masculine and the feminine into one symbol, so when you make the dark and the light into one, in other words, when you heal your past, so you make your darkness illuminated and you forgive yourself and become one being who has both darkness and light, when you make the inner like the outer, because your outer world is created by your inner world, and the outer like the inner, and you recognize that your creation in reality is your creation, the upper like the lower, you realize that you are a manifestation of the great divine oneness of God, of creator, and you make the male and female into single one. I've already said that. And you make eyes in place of an eye. So instead of looking from these eyes, you look from this side. A hand in place of a hand, so you recognize your place in the universe. A foot in place of a foot. An image in a place of an image. Then you will enter the kingdom of heaven. Now this is right from the Gnostic Bible in the gospel called the Gospel of Thomas, which was not included in the traditional Bible that we know of. There are a lot of gospels that weren't included in those Bibles. And so what this means is there's more to all of this stuff than we recognize. Now there's another book, I don't have it here with me, it's going to be in the mail tomorrow. I gave the other copy away to somebody else, called The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. And another book called The Pagan Christ by Tom Harper. Now in Tom Harper's book, he shows that the god Horus from Egypt and Christ have almost the exact same associations with one another. They have the same birth dates. They were both born of a virgin. They were both died and resurrected, or Horus's father died and resurrected. Very similar ideas, very similar teachings. Horus taught the same thing, love and forgiveness, masculine and feminine merged into one. In the book, The Unknown Life of Christ, here's a really crazy one. A man named Nicholas Notovich, a Russian explorer, was in the Tibetan and Indian mountains, and he was going around to all of these different temples, researching them, trying to find out stories to take back and write a book or something. I can't remember what he was actually trying to achieve. He hurts himself on the journey and gets taken into a monastery, and one of the lamas there show him these ancient scriptures of a man named Issac, who they said he would know him as Jesus. And this Issac character, at 13 years old, there are 16 years where we don't know what this guy did in his life. And apparently during that time, he went to India and Tibet, learned what we would have called meditation and yoga probably today, and even potentially psychedelic ceremonies. This is a book that you can find on Amazon. This guy didn't release this book until he was about to die because he was so scared of what might happen as a result. And finally he released it. And I've read this book multiple times. You shouldn't believe it. I mean, you don't know if it's true or not, but it's really interesting, especially when you think of this idea. Because if God is the everything, the container, and that Yeheshua is the higher self, pretending to be a human, then what that really means is we can heal ourselves to the point of raising ourselves to that Christ consciousness. We can actually get to that level. Now, again, I say all of this stuff with humility because I'm a human and I could have created my own experiences for my own ego or for whatever reason, but in many ceremonies, I have connected to my higher self. I've connected to this energy. I have downloaded entire systems for how to heal myself and others, and I've helped many people do it. I'm writing books about it right now. I'm going to start a webcast and then in a month or so sharing this information. I've channeled I have an entire album of music that I've channeled based on these ideas. All the lyrics come out based on these ideas. I've got an entire series of books I'm writing. I've got one book almost finished and another 4 more that are coming as a result. All after connecting to this higher version of myself and recognizing that Christ, was there a man 2,000 years ago that became enlightened? Probably. He studied Jewish Qabalah too. He studied the ancient Hebrew systems as well. He would have studied alchemy. If he really did go to Tibet and India, then he probably studied their systems as well and came back and started teaching this stuff. I'm not going to get into the specifics about the Bibles. I'm not going to get into the specifics about these books. I've read many of them. I've read the Sefer Yetzirah, aspects of it, not the whole thing, aspects of the Torah, huge chunks of the Bible, mostly Christ's teachings. And I can tell you that consistently they say the same thing. If you read them and you understand the code, they say one simple thing. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you. You are basically God experiencing itself, and that Christ and you are one, that you are Yeheshua. You are this higher self. Again, why don't we know this? Why are there religions that don't tell us this stuff? Why are there aspects of the world that don't reflect this? Because we went through that 26,000 year cycle of consciousness. Because we're just coming out of the age of Pisces, which was 2,000 years, all the way back to Christ, 2,000 years of the darkest time in a long time. For this whole 26,000 year cycle, the last 2,000, maybe 6,000 years were the darkest times. The darkest times in 26,000 years. The last 2 to 6,000 was supposed to be the darkest, the most dense in consciousness, the most amount of murder, the most amount of chaos, the most amount of separation and duality, and the idea that we're all separate from each other. So we're coming out of that. So we have to have compassion for the religious leaders. We have to have compassion for the politicians. We have to have compassion for the people that are just following their heart and playing the part that they think they're meant to play, because they have psychology too. They had traumatic childhoods too. Imagine being the Pope or a religious leader whose family probably have been preparing you for it since you were a child, programming it into your mind, telling you that things are certain ways, making you worry that God's judging you, making you worry that you're a bad person, making you worry, all of these things, just programming you with fear, because that's what happened to them. Because we got to remember, everyone, what happened to your parents, what happened to you happened to your parents too, and it happened to their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. And the only way that we can stop the cycle and change our world is if we heal ourselves. It's the only way. And when we do, not only do we start to access our higher consciousness, whatever that means, we start to get our gifts, our talents, our abilities. We start to learn who we really even are. I didn't know who I was for most of my life. I was everyone that everyone else wanted me to be. I was a people pleaser, a validation seeker, a liar, a thief, just whatever I could do to just get by in life and not make too much noise and not piss people off too much, say what they want me to say, tell them what they want to hear, and just not be my most authentic self. And as a result, I had relationships continually fail. I had friends continually leave me or betray me or me betray them. I was not living a life of happiness. But as we heal ourselves and forgive our past and transform the beliefs that have been holding us back, we access that true authentic self. And we just live in happiness all the time, regardless of what's happening outside of us. It becomes a natural state of our being. And so people say, well, is there a conspiracy in the world? Are there powers that be and authorities doing this, blah, blah, blah. If there are, every time you repeat it with your mouth, you create it. So if you don't want them to exist anymore, stop talking about it. If you don't want the chronic illness to exist anymore, stop talking about it. Listen, I am guilty of these things sometimes too. We're human beings. We got to have compassion for ourselves as we go through this process. But the goal is to don't let a word come out of your mouth that isn't influencing a reality you want to create. Don't let a word leave your mouth that isn't gratitude, love, and grace for the reality you want to create around you. Because if it's anything harsh, if it's anything hard, it's coming from a belief that's just not true and pain that just hasn't been healed. Follow that word to its thoughts, follow the thoughts to its beliefs, and then find out where in life those beliefs were created to find the events that need to be healed. It's really that simple, but it's very complicated in some cases. I've discovered and developed rituals that help me connect to not just this archetype, and an archetype is an idea, this archetype of Yeheshua as our higher self, but more specific archetypes of our higher selves. So this warrior archetype, the beautiful archetype, the medicine healer, the wisdom keeper, the priestess or the priest. There are many archetypes that we can access to of our own mind. You want to be a rock star? There's an archetype for that. Really, there is. We're all rock stars when it really comes down to it. We've all got a rock star inside of us waiting to bust out and change the world in our own unique way. We've all got gifts and talents that are hidden inside of us on the other side of our healing. As we fully heal and transform ourselves, we align with our true purpose and our mission, and life just starts to move out of the way for us. Things just start to be truly miraculous and amazing. Again, the question is, well, what can we do? Well, we can heal ourselves and create a community and work together. That's what we can do. What can we do to change the world and get this information out there or help others heal? We can heal ourselves. Because remember, if everyone's a reflection of you, then there's nobody out there to heal. We only need to heal ourselves. So I'll show you the last part of the formula to give you a little bit of a hint about what direction to go in to start healing and accessing this part of yourself. Because listen, it doesn't, and by the way, if you go to a Christian church, you understand this idea like I understand it as a very different idea than someone in a Christian church might. I can still benefit from that Christian church. I can benefit from a Buddhist temple. I can benefit from a Wicca magic circle. It's all the same wisdom. It's all based on the same fundamental laws of the universe. I can't get into those right now because it's far too complicated. But all of the magic practices in the world have similarities with one another, and they're all meant to connect us to our own higher consciousness, connect us to Creator, connect us to God, universe, whatever you like to call it, as the child of God or Yeheshua or the higher self. If there's a child of God, it's got to be our higher self. And then we then are the baby. We're the even smaller. We're the infant growing into its higher self to become children again so we can live in this place called heaven on earth, paradise, utopia, this place that we're meant to just enjoy and be a playground for us. So again, I said that there were 5 elements represented in Hebrew by Yod, He, Shin, Vav, He. Now there's which again make that code word Yeheshua. But there's another way to understand them too. They can also represent the people in our life or the people that these archetypes represent in our life in order to reach enlightenment. If we want to reach enlightenment, we have to heal our relationship to 5 archetypes. Now, you might not have one of these archetypes in your life, but that doesn't mean that that archetype doesn't exist in your life. And maybe that's why you need to heal it. For example, Yod represents father. In order to reach enlightenment, we have to fully heal our relationship to our father or our father archetype. Now, if you say, me and my father have a great relationship, it was really bad when I was a kid, but it's really great now, that doesn't mean that you've healed your relationship to your father. It might be at a level of contentment that's way better than when you were a child, but your relationship to money could still be affected. Your relationship to men could still be affected. Your relationship to other people could still be affected subconsciously if you haven't done that healing yet. He represents Mother. We got to heal our relationship to our mother, not just our physical mother, but Mother Earth, mother as in the mother of all. God is not a male or a female, in my understanding. First, there's nothing, which is the number 0, which represents the feminine womb, and then. All right. So, very interesting thing happened as I was about to share the formula for how we can access this part of ourselves. The power went out in my house, and it went out and came back on. And when it went out, obviously my internet went out too. And right when I was about to share these things, I can see some of you have made your way back to the live presentation here. So thanks for sticking by. Interesting. I was about to share some really interesting things, and the power went out. But we're back for now. I was saying how the 0 and 1 represent basically all of creation. 0 is nothing, the nothingness I told you about earlier, where there's absolutely nothing in the universe. And then the 1 represents the everything in the universe. So the 1 then has to equal masculine and feminine energy because it has to include everything. And then the 0 then has to equal nothing. So what is nothing? Well, nothing is a feminine concept of the womb. 0 representing the womb. So in the ancient methods of Qabalah and some of these others, we can interpret God or Creator as actually a virgin mother. That is not interesting. A virgin mother. The virgin mother, the letter 0, gives birth to the everything, the number 1. So again, healing our relationship to our mother heals our relationship to actually the goddess, the true God or creator or creatress of everything. Again, that's just my theory. Create your own theories. The next relationship is the relationship to ourselves. Now, the relationship to ourselves is also represented by the ether element. So we have to heal all of our relationships to truly heal our relationship to ourselves, but it's just in the formula of this. And then we have the relationship to our brothers or men in our life, or those who play the masculine role, and our sisters, or our sister, actual sisters, or the women or the feminine people in our lives that play that role. When we do a moral inventory of our lives, when we go through every single relationship in the core of our childhood and all the way up, and sometimes it takes every relationship, everyone, let me be honest with you. If you've had close friends that you had falling out with, or brother or sister, cousins, uncles, aunts, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandparents, teachers, godparents, whatever, you might have to heal your relationships to every one of these people. You don't have to do it with them. You can do it without them. And then by the time you do it without them, once that work is finished, you won't really need to heal your relationship with them. It'll happen automatically. My relationship with my parents is not the same relationship it was 5 years ago because I healed my relationship to myself and ultimately my relationship of their reflection. So the formula for enlightenment really is to heal our 5 bodies, our mental body, our emotional body. Again, this is let me do it. I'm going to change this diagram every once so we can really go out on a bang and finish this presentation. So funny what happened, isn't it? All right. So this is just my theory. Again, this is something that I've extracted from all of the influences I've come through. But the idea is that when we fully heal ourselves, the true self, the full, all-encompassing self, then we access enlightenment or absolute happiness, freedom from addiction, freedom from need, freedom from scarcity, freedom from insecurity, freedom from any of these things. We end up living our happiness from the inside out, and we just become happiness, and our life reflects that. So in order to achieve that, we have to heal our relationship to the 5 archetypes, which are the Father. And again, this can be our divine Father as well, and our divine mother, who represent very different things. The Father represents the light in the world, the unmanifested world. The mother actually represents the darkness, the manifested world, the illusion, Maya, duality. If there was a devil, well, it would be the mother, but not quite the way you might think. The mother represents our own reflection. So the devil then represents our own fear and our own ignorance, our reflection of ourselves. The Shin represents the self. The Vav represents the brother or brothers, and the sisters or sisters. So then the formula is to heal these archetypes while also healing the 5 bodies simultaneously. These things will happen at the same time. The spiritual body can also be understood as the electrical body, the emotional body, the astral body, or the consciousness. Now, let me just say, we heal the astral body by doing this kind of work, by expanding our consciousness and recognizing that we're not just humans, we're not limited, we're not victims, we are more than that. That's how we heal our astral body. And then our mental body, all of these bodies, none of this is new. I mean, this stuff has been done for thousands of years, and we know how to heal our mental body. We program our beliefs, we practice puzzles, we play music, we do things that require us to think deeply. We know how to heal our emotional body. We cry things out, we talk it out, we express, we change ourselves. We know how to heal our physical body. We cleanse, we diet, we exercise, we clean our body out, we drink lots of water. And our electrical body is the take an action part. It's the courage, it's the faith in ourselves, it's moving forward despite fear. And that's a part in our society that really struggles a lot. And then the astral body, again, is the consciousness, expanding our consciousness to higher degrees. Okay, so that's the key of the presentation. And to put it very clearly, to summarize my beliefs, one, I believe that life is a video game. Two, I believe that you are God, existing as the character known as Christ or Horus or Mithras or Krishna or whatever character you prefer, manifested as whoever your character is. And finally, I believe that the time of enlightenment is here. So again, let me summarize my core beliefs here. I believe that life is a video game and that we're all playing this video game. I believe that you are God existing as Yeheshua or Christ or Horus or whatever you want to call it, manifested as a human being. And I believe that the time of enlightenment is here and that this information is going to become common knowledge very soon. It's going to become common knowledge all across our planet. And people like me speaking this message and people like you taking the time to learn it are how that's going to happen. And maybe you speak your own message and contribute to this message really of just freedom, love, and forgiveness. That's all it is. When we forgive these people and ourselves for all of the things that have happened to us, we become living in a state of happiness and unconditional love. Our beliefs and our habits align with our truth and our mission, and we live heaven on earth. And it's that simple. And I know that all of you have experienced varying degrees of heaven on earth in your own life in some way or another. I know you've experienced times. Martin Root, I'll be telling you about him in a minute, wrote a book called Project Heaven on Earth. And this book helps you understand how you already have lived and are living heaven on earth in different aspects of your life. And then as we do this deeper healing and deeper forgiveness work and expand our consciousness to recognize who we really are through study, through practice, through mentorship, through working with powerful healers and coaches and so on, then we access this higher realm of our own consciousness. So that's that information there. Now, a couple other things I want to mention to you. First of all, this ceremony work that I've done, there are lots of people that can offer this kind of work to you, shamans, healers. Get out there and start asking for this help. It's out there in our world. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada. It doesn't matter if you're in the US. It doesn't matter if you're in Europe. I know of shamans that go to those places and perform plant medicine ceremonies. I know of them. I know it's done. Keep looking and you'll find it. Secondly, I want to keep this message going. I want to keep this movement happening. I'm creating a webcast, basically like a podcast, but sort of like this on video every week, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, where I'm going to be interviewing authors and other guests who believe this stuff and have versions of this secret of their own. One of them, again, being Martin Root. Martin Root has written this book, Project Heaven on Earth. He's also written, as you can see, there's a foreword by Jack Canfield. Martin wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work with Jack Canfield, a New York Times bestseller. Incredible man, very powerful spiritual man. Steve Foran has written the book Surviving to Thriving, the 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. He's going to be on the webcast as well, again, starting in January or July. Neville McKay is one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. He's a celebrity entertainer and owns a floral shop, and he's an author, and he's been on television. He's on television every week, and just an incredible man that's applied these concepts to his life to just create a total dream life for himself. And many other guests, Jackie Netchell, a coach I've been working with, and I'm working on other guests too. If you want to sign up to receive notifications and subscribe to the webcast, it's completely free. There are no sales. This is me giving this information away, trying to help the world become a better place. You can sign up to it. It's just going to be rickygoodall.com/the greatest secret. If you go there and sign up, you'll get a notification every time I send out an episode. I'm also going to send out the book list for this program through that document, or through that landing page. So if you go to that website right there, rickygoodall.com/the greatest secret, as soon as you sign up, you'll get an email confirming that you signed up to the webcast, and I'm going to send you the book list of all of the books I have here. I mean, again, like, you know, this is just one of the piles of books here. Look at this one at the bottom. Like, this is a massive book. But I mean, these are just some of the books that I've read doing this work, and the ones on the top are different tarot books and Qabalah books and Alchemy books and Gnostic Bibles and Christian Bibles and you know, Hebrew texts and Egyptian texts and magic texts. You got to be open-minded to all of it if you really want to capture the essence of it. But if you take what I've given here today and you start researching it on your own, if you take the book list I'm going to send out to you and you start digging into it and really trying to understand this stuff, you'll reach a level of freedom. Effort is all that's mattered. When you start, all that matters. When you start reading a book like this, you know, one of these ancient esoteric books, just setting the intention by reading it is helping you download the ideas and understand them more. This is not about memorization. This is about understanding. It's different. You don't have to read these books front to back. You don't have to read them and memorize them. You don't have to memorize everything in the book. You just read what works for you, take some of it, go move on to someone else, something else, and come back. And you keep studying it like that. It's not necessary to memorize. It's necessary to understand. And these concepts will start to download into your mind just by reading them. Listen, everyone, I really believe, I truly believe in my heart that we are this character. We are this holy child, this holy one, the child of the mother and the father, the child of the everything, the child of God, so to speak, pretending to be human. And this is not my idea. This has been shared throughout history. The entire Knights Templar, I'm sure you've heard of them, were based on this idea. There are plenty of ancient mystics that serve this idea, not just Christians. Again, this is Hebrews. This is Egyptians. This is the ancient Hindus believe this stuff. Krishna, Quetzalcoatl, they all mean the same thing. They all mean our higher self, aspects of our higher self. The hundreds of gods and goddesses in different pantheons are also archetypes of our mind, archetypes of our psychology. But this Yeheshua character, this character is the highest of the high, the king of kings, so to speak. And the reason that they're called king and it's a masculine connotation, because the men have always been the stronger leaders. Think about nature. If we're out in nature, who's going to protect us against animals? The females or the men? Some females will too, but the men are just naturally, genetically predisposed to be the ones that lead and that protect. Sort of like the dump truck leads in the front and the smaller trucks drive behind it because the dump truck's up there to take all the damage. Men are sort of like that. We're utilitarian vehicles. You know, women are beautiful and curvy and built very different than us. So in ancient times, they explained the king as the leader, but the women have that same archetype inside of them as well. We're all masculine and feminine. We're all perfectly balanced. None of us are truly binary at our core. We're all this character, which is 5 elements, not 4, 5. And ether represents both masculine and feminine combined as one. So that's it, everyone. I really hope that you got a chance to catch up on the video. I'll send out the replay with the 2 videos sandwiched together so you can watch them straight through. And again, sign up to rickygoodall.com/the greatest secret. I'll send you the book list. I'll send you the webcast when they begin. You're not going to get any sales emails there. Once in a while, I may tell you about a program I have. I may tell you about something that I'm offering, but I won't do it in a greasy way. I'm just going to let you know it's there. You can ignore it if you like. It's fine. The majority of this email list, 90% of it, is going to be valuable content like what I've been sharing here today. I've got a few minutes, so I'm going to see if I can figure out how to open this up to questions if anyone has a question. So let me see here. If you, I don't know if I can actually see questions in this. I'm still learning Zoom webinar. So maybe no questions. But if you have questions and I email you the replay, you can send me an email back and I'll answer some questions. If you have other questions that I can answer on the webcast once it gets going, I'll answer those as well. Again, if you want a book list of resources, I'm going to send that out. Just sign up here, rickygoodall.com/the greatest secret to access that book list and to get set up into that inside circle. again, everyone, I'm not claiming that I have reached some, ultimate, perfect, liberated level of consciousness yet, but I am fully confident that I will, in my life, reach what the shamans and the ancients call the absolute happiness state, or the enlightenment state, or the end of correction. I've been studying this stuff. I've been applying myself. I've reached levels of understanding and healing and peace and happiness and contentment in my life that I never imagined possible before. And with what I've been through in my life, if I can achieve it, believe me, you can achieve it too. We all have this gift. We all have this ability inside of us. And it comes down to one thing, really. How bad do you want it, and what are you willing to face? What fears are you willing to face to get it? Because believe me, if you want it, you're going to have to face a lot of pain and a lot of fears moving in that direction. Our happiness, our excitement, our fulfillment is on the other side of our edge. And we have to continually move toward that edge to really access the freedom we want. It's kind of sick and twisted if you think about it, but God, if there is a God, and higher self if there is a higher self, wants you to jump off the cliff. It wants you to face the scary meeting. It wants you to ask and get rejected. It wants you to go for the person that you don't have a chance dating. The higher self wants you to face your fears, because on the other side of those fears are a bunch of gifts and rewards for your courage. Every time you face a fear, every time you put yourself out there, every time you move toward discomfort and pain in your life, you're going to be rewarded somehow. Now, there's pain that's not good for you, and there's pain that is good for you. So you get to make that choice. But as we create voluntary suffering in our life in the form of discipline, in the form of healthy habits, in the form of healing ourselves, we don't have to experience involuntary sacrifice and suffering, which is our own karmic backlash. So as we heal ourselves, we neutralize our karma, we stop the inflow of pain from coming to us, and instead we project love and light and happiness, and that's all we experience in return. You can shift your entire reality in a single moment. In a single moment, everything can change. Keep moving down this journey, and I promise you that if you keep moving faithfully and persevere through your pain and through your struggles, you will reach a place of peace and happiness. I guarantee it. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for those who jumped back on the call after I lost power and everything. I appreciate you making the time to come back. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to email me. It's just ricky@rickygoodall.com, and be sure to sign up to the webcast and to get the book list and everything else. And I'll talk to you all very soon. Okay. Thanks, everyone.